So there's like all these misconceptions, with the deep state, being run by Democrats and all, and how, there is no such thing as collusion, that collusion is fake news, that there is no collusion, that it's all hoax and it's all fake. Now, I'd like to start off by saying this, is that number one, any intelligence agency can influence, alter, and impact an election. Because we did it, America did it for decades and for the last part of the century. So in the 1950s, we had a situation in Iran where the Iranians wanted to nationalize their oil. In other words, they did not want the West to control their resources. And so what happened with Iran was that the CIA partake in the overthrow of the democratically elected government of Iran. They instituted the Iranian Shah, who would serve as a pro-American puppet and would serve American interests. So what you hear about with Iran being an enemy and all this, well, you get white people, you play their prejudice against different colors and people from different backgrounds, right? You portray these people as being barbaric, uncivilized, bombers, terrorists, all that. But in actuality, in the 1970s, the Iranians overthrew the Shah and they took back their government. We did the same in Iraq, where Iraq was predominantly a Shia government. We tried to get into Iraq and steal their oil over there. The Saudis, the Bush oil family, whatnot, American oil companies, Halliburton and all this. And then we instituted a Shia government over a predominantly Sunni region. So if you have a predominantly Sunni region and you install the Shia Muslims, I think is the term, then you're bound to create destabilization. So understand that we have overthrown democratically elected governments all across the world. So in other words, we can't expect anyone else to partake in the same thing. It's not reasonable to assume that Russia can never hack our elections, but we do it all the time. So of course Russia is capable of doing it to us. If we did it to Cuba, if we did it to Nicaragua, if we did it to Iraq, if we did it to Iran, then of course they're going to have the powers that be broker the collusion of this election. And what Donald Trump is a proxy, is that he is a proxy to the powers up. And what we're talking about is bankers, international bankers that control the dollars, control the money that we print, and all of the money is debt-based to begin with. And because it's debt-based, we don't own the money. And because it is debt-based, it's owned by private banks. And that's why we don't see United States notes anymore. United States notes, aka owned by the Treasury. They're owned by the Treasury, but instead of that, you see Federal Reserve notes. Federal Reserve notes are privately owned, and it's a quasi-public institution that prints money and that loans it to the government. So when is the time that the governments need the most money? Wartime, supplies, troops, travel, manpower. That is the time when governments need to borrow the most. And that's when the private bankers can make a huge killing off of interest that they make through the money that, by the way, how do they pay the money that they print out of thin air? Well, they print more money out of thin air. They pay off the old debt with that, but then the interest rate goes up. And so that is why it's mathematically impossible to pay off the debt of a country. And that is how wars are controlled by both sides. Wars are controlled by both sides, of course, because if the war ends in 6 months, a year, then that's very little money to be made by the people that are borrowing the money for these politicians to go fight the wars. And that's what happened during World War I. Was that World War I, we had trench warfare. And because we had trench warfare, if you try to get out of your trench and try to take over the other trench, well, they're shooting over at no man's land, just open space, and everyone was just getting shot at, and there wasn't any territory to be gained. So the war should have ended in the stalemate, World War I. If the war ended in a stalemate, we would have never gotten Adolf Hitler. Because if the war ended in a stalemate, Germany would have not been left into ruins and have to pay billions and billions of war reparations that they had to pay for everyone else's expenses in the war. Not excusing it, but they fucked up the country. They fucked up the country because it set up a tyrannical, dictatorous regime, and it allowed another conflict to develop. And what the bankers did, the bankers that are Zionists, and their Mecca is pretty much Israel. That is their country for all their chosen peoples to go over there. And so what the bankers did was that they gave the United States all the money, and they allowed the war to continue, and they wanted to help the West win. And they got America into a war that it didn't need to join. So that was what was happening with World War I. And this is how bankers control both sides. And so what is happening with Vladimir Putin right now in Russia is that an enemy is being manufactured. An enemy is being manufactured. I'm going to type that out. An enemy is being manufactured. And Trump, the puppet, is here to kickstart World War III. Trump is here to facilitate World War III. He is here to make the enemy stronger. The deep state took advantage of a guy who is in deep trouble. The deep state put a puppet in there who, quite frankly, owed a lot of people money. And he owed money to U.S. banks, to Russian oligarchs. These are the people that Donald Trump was beholden to. These are the people that he has to serve in order to pay back the debts that he cannot pay back, of course, because his dad is no longer here to bail him out. And guess what? Donald Trump's dad bailed him out. U.S. banks could no longer loan money to Donald Trump. His business empire and his way of life was gone for good. He is no real billionaire. He may not even be a multi-millionaire. Because all of the assets that he acquired, was it through equity? Was it through real wealth? How was all these assets, all of these properties acquired? Was he gaining wealth at all? This was the same guy that bankrupted a casino for hell's sake. Not one casino, but multiple casinos. And so all of the properties that he bought and all this shiny plate of gold he owned was all bought with money that he borrowed. He doesn't even own most of the buildings that he has. He just leases out his name to these buildings. Donald Trump, this great businessman, he does not even own most of these buildings. He leases out his family name to these buildings, and this is how he tries to pay back his debt. This is how you have this whole scam going on, that he's such a great, great, great businessman. So when you put the Russians in there to keep your business empire afloat, and you don't have a way to pay them back, they buy the presidency. Of course, how did he get away with all this? The Republicans could have impeached him, convicted him, and threw him out of office because the Republicans controlled both chambers. The Republicans didn't do that, did they? Well, the Republicans were taking part of the dismantling of American institutions, and the Republicans were here to keep the proxy in power because the Republicans are here to profit and here to allow the military-industrial complex to benefit off of making the enemy stronger. Putin has said before that he wants a greater Slavic state. He wants a greater Slavic state. People are blind. They do not know how this is working. Collusion did happen, but it's the deep state. It is the bankers. It is the people that run these puppeteers that are running the collusion thing. It's not just a whole group of people acting alone. Republicans nominated Donald Trump. They are allowing this to happen, and the Republicans and the Democrats still know that this whole collusion thing with Donald Trump, they're here to let it happen because they're manufacturing the war. So this is how it's working. If the Republicans wanted to prevent this conflict from happening, they could have got rid of Donald Trump today, for all we know, and people could not care less. That's exactly what's happened, is that you're here to allow Putin to invade the West. He wants to regain the broken up SSR because he sees him as being part of a great Slavic race. And that's what Vlad wants. And the bankers know that. And the bankers are here to give Vlad all he wants because these same bankers, these same Zionist bankers, they killed millions of Jews by backing Adolf Hitler so they can make money off of murder and killing and all of this, and so they could create Israel. So that is the enemy that they have created. Zionists murdered 6 million of their own. Zionists murdered their own people. Adolf Hitler wanted to ship the Jews off of Israel. He wanted to do that. The Zionists murdered 6 million of their own. These Zionist bankers play God. That's what they do. They're here to make money. They're here to manufacture enemies. So what's happening with Russia is, yeah, they are a threat. But the enemy is being manufactured by the very people that are pulling the strings. And that's really what's happening right now. So all this outrage and all this, like, they could have prevented all this from happening a long time ago. But it's a whole plot that's being manufactured as time goes by. That in your own mind, that you cannot allow someone who's supposed to be this daddy figure. That's what Donald is, because many people are approaching retirement ages. And many of these people, of course, are older white Americans. And you want someone in there that's going to remind them of from a time long ago that reminds them of what the good old days are. And that's what Donald Trump was put into power to do, is to control these older people. They're quite frankly scared to death. Once they reach retirement, that they're not able to receive Social Security or being able to be well off in these same people that recover from the crash. And that's what the figure of Donald Trump represents, is that he's supposed to be this daddy figure that you're supposed to trust. This is why many older white Americans are the biggest victims of fake news, because what it is social control at the end of the day. You're supposed to be sure that everything is okay and outrage these people that we put a black man in as a president and someone who's very charismatic and whatnot, people really liked. But Barack Obama, at the same time, he had a lot of Citigroup people in his cabinet, and Goldman Sachs, donated the most to his campaigns. It's that Obama did some good things in many aspects. Like, we have a left wing and the right wing. Left wing is supposed to be a little bit better than the right wing, but the left wing, that they allow the bombs to continue, right? They still have a bunch of millionaires in Congress. Or we need to have all these taxes and all that, but then they pay lip service and they won't do anything because they're perfectly okay with it, because at the end of the day, all these people are multimillionaires and billionaires too, and all these people are owned by the people that run America. So the bankers at the top, but then you have the drug companies, and you have the OxyContin folks that are murdering people, that are reducing. You can't say it's population control, but it's just people that they're bound to make a lot of money with OxyContin, to get people hooked on that, to get people hooked on OxyContin, and to make them drug addicted criminals, and then the rich throw these people into the private prisons, and that is how you have your rigged system today. So that's really how these people engineer all this. And what you're seeing with the collusion with the Russian government is that the people that run the strings, the bankers, they're the ones controlling it. So don't go out there and say that, no collusion is happening. You have to understand that all of it is being manufactured to create an enemy in the first place. And, if all this wasn't all staged and meant to create a conflict, then the Republicans could have got rid of Donald Trump a long time ago. So that's how they're pulling the strings with all this. And at the end of the day, some people, these people are pretty sick in their own way. That you have longtime GOP operatives, you have longtime operatives of the establishment like Roger Stone get involved with collusion and all this, and they're merely fish. And Roger Stone and these people are fish because they think that they're getting a big deal, by being a part of a presidency that's currently in power right now. But very, very, very little do these people know is that you are partaking in crimes that you knowingly know are happening, but you're not the very top. not the very top of the ringleader. Is that you're just little fishes? They're meant to be so scapegoats, and you have the people at the top like Trump and Kushner. How long in the game has he been? He hasn't been in the game for really long, has he? I mean, Chris Christie has been in the game and all this, and it helps that he prosecuted Kushner's dad, and because of that, he's good friends with Trump and all, and he doesn't get himself involved in this mess. And you have these people that get involved with the campaigns, like with Teddy Cruz and all, and then they go out and they play both sides, and they go out and make these leaks from what's happening in the Trump White House. And let me stop there and just talk about, what he's really doing to strengthen Russia. He's like, yeah, we need more American steel, right? Well, these American steel companies are owned by Russians. That's number one. Number two, destabilize NATO. Are you guys foolish? Destabilize NATO. Well, when you weaken NATO, guess what? It's easier for Vladimir Putin to regain these lost territories. It's easy to get the bankers the money that they need to profit off of the wars. Let me share these links, because people have gone mad and they really don't understand what's happening here. They don't really understand really what's happening in all this, and they're really convinced that there's no collusion and whatnot, but it is happening. They just have no idea who's really pulling the strings. It's not Trump and company acting independently. It's the people at the top that are allowing them to happen, and they're loosening regulations. They're giving billionaires tax cuts. So what do the billionaires really care about that to begin with? And what is really there to gain for Vladimir Putin when Donald Trump dropped out of the Syria region? That's exactly how he's being a puppet of Vlad, and the people that run America, they're allowing this to happen. And he is an enemy that people vilify in America, that they can easily bring down once things get worse. I haven't looked into Venezuela. That's a really great question. I have no idea how Venezuela got involved in this equation, but I have to read up more on Venezuela. I'm just following up on Vladimir Putin and his great Slavic ambition, and what Trump wants to do with destabilizing NATO, and he tried to lift the Russian sanctions. That's what Matt Flynn was caught lying to Congress about. What's that about Brazil? So you have all these populists in Europe. It's Vladimir Putin funding all these populist governments in Europe. And you have to understand that World War II happened because of populist leaders and because of nationalism. So we're seeing the same thing happen. And people are not really learning from these far-right movements that have produced a lot of violence and a lot of racism and ethnicism against certain groups of people. And it's all here to manufacture and create an enemy. I just don't see the enemy being ISIS. I see it as being Russia. And what's happening with all the attempts to sway public opinion with fake news, all this is happening, and we should be preventing all this stuff from happening. But of course, we're allowing Russia to get away with it, because obviously the people running the show, they're allowing the Russians to carry this out. And why couldn't they stop the Russians? Okay, Donald Trump says, oh, it was Hillary's server and all this. And then, boom, after the Trump Tower meeting, we have the Russians hacking the Democratic servers. Of course it was happening. But they're allowing them to get away with this. Russian and U.S. intel's working together. You don't want to underestimate Putin, the former KGB spot for 14 years. I think it is an expert in cyber intelligence. Russian and U.S. intel have to be working together. Have to be working together. That's what is happening here. We have the invasion of Crimea. This was happening a long time ago. This was happening in 2014. He invaded Crimea. This was the modern Hitler Antros and the Czech Republic and Austria and all this predominant Russian-speaking region. Just like these regions, Czechoslovakia, Czech Republic, Austria, predominant German speakers. Wise up on this, people. This is all being manufactured in front of your eyes. All this is all part of the plan for the deep state, and Donald Trump, the proxy here, is allowed to help out Wall Street because he owed a lot of money to Wall Street. He owes a lot of people to Russian oligarchs. So Trump, business ties, Russian mob. I mean, people want to say that this is all fake news. I mean, those people don't know shit. They really don't know shit. They don't understand who's playing the strings. They get all sucked into all the fake news campaign that's going on right now. They want you to think that there's no Russian collusion and all this. They don't want you to follow along with the plot, but it is. You just have to take the right angle with it, the right angle. And don't forget that we had economic crash 1929, 4 years before Adolf Hitler gained power in 1933, before World War II started. So I see a lot of parallels with history and what's happening today. Oh, you are fake news, my friend. You are fake news. And I already predicted the crash. I already did. I already predicted this presidency the last 4 years. You just look at the plot and you look at the name. The name reveals everything. War in. Elizabeth, war in. Oh, young person, yay. That's not how it works. We didn't just go from JFK to another young, good-looking Democrat. Yeah, I want to change the world and all this. No, that didn't happen. We went from JFK to Jimmy Carter. We went from a really young guy to a really old person. The only difference is that this next president is going to be female. 2020. Obama, Warren, elected rat years. Both of them are oxes. And ox number 2, those presidents are going to last for 8 years. That'd be Warren and Obama. And then after the next war, then I'd expect a modern conservative revolution by the time that 2028 is upon us. That's probably when the next conservative revolution is going to be. They're going to be more tolerant towards people of color and whatnot. And I imagine that Republican Party is going to be less crazy than it is today, and with this older generation and whatnot, and the religious right and all this. So I don't have a doubt that Trump can be the low point, and that they can hopefully turn this around. But enemy is being manufactured, and we're just about to see the plot unfold, and the best is about to happen. The fish are going to go down. The people at the top are going to continue to be okay. I'm sure CIA and KGB will give Trump the bullet. Give Trump the bullet. Russia blamed for this. Russia blamed. Putin gets a power trip, like a lot of these murderous dictators do. They get a power trip off of having a control over an army in a war, but really who's controlling the armies is the bankers. How long will the resources kick in? So really that's what's going to happen now, is that Trump's days are numbered, and he could be getting a bullet anytime soon. I imagine right around 2021 or so is probably a good year for that. Well, that's probably my next prediction, but I'm still going to go with Trump to be clipped all this is going to unfold together. People are going to think, oh, the Republicans allowed Trump and all to get away with this, and they're all in bed together with this. They really are. They're just helping out the bankers and the military-industrial complex. Those are the people that run the show. All the retards out there, oh yeah, Donald Trump is on the wall, yeah, the retards don't know anything about history and nationalism and the Hitler Anschluss, and we had the modern day Anschluss and Crimea. These people get sucked into these sides, I tell you. You'll probably ask women to think about Warren if she wins. Like, she'd be better than Trump, but I'd be super skeptical that we'd see all this revolutionary sweeping changes. I mean, the rich are going to continue to get richer as long as they run the system. I can tell you that. We'd at least see lower deficits and whatnot, and we'd see some fiscal responsibility. Things get slightly better under Democrats, and they're just worse under Republicans. And it doesn't seem that we want to learn our lessons from George Bush Jr. And what we have right now is the enemy was manufactured. We have 9/11, and then we can have the staged assassination of Donald Trump that the CIA will orchestrate and put together, and then they can blame Russia for that. 9/11, Emperor Nero burns down Rome. They blame the Jews. Adolf Hitler burns down the Reichstag. They blame communists. They blame the Jews. Yeah, there's no border crisis. It's all bullshit. Oh, Margaret Kevin. It's right before midterm. People are gullible, man. People get sucked into fake news and all this. I can provide real solutions, like all this crap with the border wall and tunnels and all this and waste of money. Vladimir Putin wants to waste our money. Of course, Republicans know better. They know that they're just overstaying their visa, so they're not going to give that. They're not going to give this jackass money to build a wall. And there are too many retards in this country. I hope people can wake up. I really hope the next Republican revolution can learn their lessons from this complete disaster that everyone got sucked into. Really, they had no idea what was happening. And I told these people that all these things are being orchestrated. War in. World War III. Proxy to Russia. Put in there by people he owes money to. Deep state bankers. Yeah, the music is about to come, and the very best of the plot is yet to come. And by the time February comes, by the time you hear Cohen speak and whatnot, then this jazz is going to get super, super dicey.